On November of 1990, the U.S. Congress established Newberry National Volcanic Monument in order to preserve and protect, for present and future generations, Newberry's remarkable geologic landforms. Here, spectacular geology is at your fingertips. We can learn a lot from the diverse geology of Newberry. Different types of rock tell us how eruptions happened. Some volcanic features are still active today. The natural history shows over 500,000 years of volcanic activity. Non-volcanic nature has a story to tell here too. After many eruptions, Newberry volcano collapsed to form a 5-mile wide caldera. But volcanic activity continued to occur in the area. Lava flows, buttes, and cinder cones formed as Newberry's volcanic pressure was released. Many other unique rock formations were also formed. The eruptions of Newberry didn't stop until about 1,300 years ago. Water continues to change the landscapes to this day. Plant life has reclaimed a lot of the land destroyed by eruptions. Thanks to these destructive forces of nature, dramatic landscapes cover the Newberry Monument area. Today, Newberry is a destination for many forms of outdoor recreation. With such a wide volcanic area, Newberry is the largest volcano of the Cascades. Enjoy the views and learn about the volcanic wonders of Oregon at Newberry National Volcanic Monument. The monument was named in honor of geologist John Newberry. In Central Oregon, he made many groundbreaking discoveries on glaciers, erosion, and plant geography. Newberry explored this area for the Pacific Railroad surveys in the 1800s. The designation of Newberry Monument was a long effort by many parties. As survey drills for volcanic-powered geothermal energy were being done, conservationists looked to protect the land. Protection efforts finally reached the goal of designating Newberry Monument in 1990. Newberry Volcanic Monument sits right about in the center of Oregon, near the town of Bend. The main caldera sits at the south end of the monument, while you can see its lava flows to the northwest. There are many points of interest within the monument that we will explore one by one. The first destination is at the far north end of Newberry. Here you can see how the volcano's eruptions affected the Deschutes River. On the northwestern edge of Newberry Monument is the windy Deschutes River. This area has mostly calm water, great for activities such as kayaking and fishing. There is also the Deschutes River Trail going all the way from Sun River to Bend. About 80,000 years ago, an eruption from Newberry volcano covered the Deschutes River east of here. A new river channel slowly formed to the west. The river today is a result of that very old eruption and another one that flowed over it. The newer eruption happened 7,000 years ago when the nearby lava Butte erupted. The volcanic flow filled the channel that the river flowed through and formed a basalt rock dam. Water built up behind the dam and Lake Benham was formed. As the water built up, it found an outlet. A channel was slowly cut out by the force of that water. As the channel widened, it drained Lake Benham back down to a river. The force of water reacting to the force of eruptions left us with Benham Falls. Thanks to Newberry's eruptions, these falls are the largest of the upper Deschutes River. Benham Falls is a great first example of how the eruptions from Newberry volcano transformed the land around it. On the east side of the Deschutes River is the lava flow that created Benham Falls. This area is also the main interpretive hub for Newberry Monument. At Lavalands, there are miles of solidified lava flow. This flow came from the eruption of the nearby lava Butte 7,000 years ago. Before exploring the lava flows, the visitor center is a great source of information, and sometimes rangers will give presentations.
There is volcanic ash here as well, and a lot of that ash is coming from Crater Lake 7,700 years ago when Mount Mazama was Mount Mazama, which is now that beautiful Crater Lake.
The Trail of the Whispering Pines is an interpretive botanical trail from the visitor center. Featured here is various plant life that thrives in the high desert. Bitterbrush is very common at Newberry. This plant is an important source of food for animals like deer and elk. Long before Newberry Monument, Native Americans harvested manzanita berries for food and to make wine. Many plants thrive on the outside of the lava flow, as shade and soil are much more abundant. Another trail from Lavalands is the Lava Sun Trail. This 5-mile trail goes from Lavalands to the town of Sun River. Being a paved trail, the Lava Sun is popular for biking. The main attraction at Lavalands is the lava field itself. At Trail of the Molten Land, you can explore and learn about this lava flow. The mile-long loop shows great examples of past and present geology. The paved trail is accessible, and dogs are welcome to explore it on leash. Lavalands formed about 7,000 years ago when lava Butte erupted. Lava flowed from an opening at the base of the Butte. Is a fast-moving and destructive lava. This type of flow travels further and leaves jagged basalt rocks behind. Basalt is dark in color, fine-grained, and a thinner material. Including ocean floors, this is the most common rock type covering the Earth. After being devastated by eruption, plant life has slowly returned to lavalands. A xeric plant is one that has evolved and adapted to dry conditions. These plants have grown and survived without much soil, shade, or water. Their survival comes from smaller leaves, morning dew collection, and a waxy coat that reflects sunlight. There is a special twisted tree named the lava nest monster. Like all plants that survive in the lava fields, this one had to adapt. Trees adapt by sending out a single moisture-seeking taproot rather than the usual system of many roots. Nutrients are then distributed out to the entire tree by growing in a spiral fashion. The unique lava fields of this area have provided us with many different types of scientific research. In the 1960s, Apollo 11 astronauts trained here to prepare for a moonwalk. They believed that jagged basalt rocks were similar to what they might find on the moon. This and a few other Central Oregon lava fields have been used by astronauts for training. The end of the trail leads to Phil Brogan Viewpoint. Phil Brogan was an award-winning Central Oregon writer that covered many natural science topics in the area. Here you can look west in the direction that the lava Butte eruption flowed. The eruption covered the land for miles, and some life has slowly found its way back to the area. Lavalands gives an up-close look at the destructive nature of lava and the regrowth that happens after. At the southwest end of Lavalands is the source of all this lava. Here we can get up close with one of the eruption points of Newberry. Lava Butte is a cinder cone that sits 500 feet above the surrounding lava flow that it created. While this is the most well-known butte of the monument, it is one of 400-something cones coming from Newberry Volcano. This group of cinder cones generally goes from Newberry Volcano to the northwest. These buttes served as a release of volcanic pressure for the area known as the Northwest Rift Zone, which we will learn about later. Driving up the road, you may notice that trees are absent on the south side. This side is shorter and thinner, which caused the lava to come out in that direction. The lava butte flow left almost no usable ground for plant life. Mostly on the north side of Lava Butte that gets less sun, rock was broken down into soil and plants began to grow. The red cinder road circling Lava Butte can also be traveled by foot and bike. Signs are posted to keep people on the road, as walking straight up the butte causes damage. At the top of the butte is a Forest Service fire lookout tower built in the 1930s. With such flat surroundings, this is the perfect spot to have 360 views of the Deschutes National Forest. Looking west, you will see part of the Cascade Range, which Newberry is a distant part of. Newberry has such a dry climate due to the rain shadow from these mountains. Cascade peaks such as Mount Jefferson gather weather systems from the west. Rain and snow mostly happen at the west side and on top of the mountains. By the time the weather system reaches Newberry, it is much warmer and drier. The same process happens again on the east side of Newberry, making that side even more dry. At the middle of the butte is a 100-foot deep crater. This shows the starting point of Lava Butte's eruption 7,000 years ago. Eruption started with molten rock shooting up and solidifying into cinders. Cinders settled, forming a cone, taller on the northeast side due to wind. The second phase of the eruption was a destructive flow of lava. The south side of the cone was too weak to hold in the upward flowing lava, so rather than flowing out the top, lava flowed from the base of Lava Butte. This lava flow formed both lavalands and Benham Falls from earlier. Lava Butte is the flagship of the hundreds of buttes at Newberry Monument. It is a great example of how most of Newberry's lava flows started. After checking out Lava Butte and its lava flow, there is one more place to see at the north end of the monument. This unique and hidden attraction was created by a very old lava flow. Lava River Cave is a mile-long lava tube created by a lava flow from Newberry Volcano. Before entering, the rangers will teach you about a bat disease called white nose syndrome.
So guys, we are talking about a non-native disease, a cold-loving fungus that hangs out in a lot of our caves here in North America. This disease was presumably introduced to the States from Europe back in 2006, and this disease affects our bats here in North America.
White nose syndrome has killed millions of bats in North America. As the disease is spread by humans, it is important to not wear the same gear to multiple caves. The canyon-like entrance of the cave was once part of the lava tube. The entire roof collapsed at this part, leaving an opening to the cave. This diagram shows the mile-long journey through Oregon's longest lava tube. It is slightly downhill with many obstacles to be careful with. Warm clothing is essential as the cave stays around 42 degrees year-round. Long ago, the cold cave was used by hunters to keep meat fresh. Due to obsidian flakes being found in the cave, we know that Native Americans used this cave for a very long time. While obsidian is created by volcanoes, it was not created at Lava River Cave. It was most likely taken from the naturally formed obsidian at Newberry Caldera. Lava River Cave began forming from an eruption about 80,000 years ago. It was the same eruption that moved the Deschutes River from earlier. As Newberry Volcano released volcanic pressure, one of its many cinder cones was formed. The source of Lava River Cave is much less obvious than the younger flows surrounding the area. The cinder cone has likely been covered by other lava flows and plant life since erupting. The site of this cave was a flowing river of active lava. Eventually, the lava solidified on top, forming a rock ceiling. The lava on the floor drained out and solidified, leaving the lava rock tube you see today. Parts of the cave floor are covered in sand. This sand is actually volcanic ash from another eruption. The sand comes from the surface by water flowing through cracks. Eventually, the cave ceiling gets too short to pass through and there's an ending sign. At this point, it is time to head back to the entrance. Visitors are relieved by the first natural light and fresh air they have seen in a mile. There is a pile of boulders at the entrance of the cave. Inside the cave stays a constant temperature year-round, so freezing only occurs at the entrance. Groundwater freezes in the rock cracks above the ceiling. When the rocks thaw out, they loosen and sometimes fall to the floor. Lava River Cave is a great example of the many unique formations that can come from eruptions. After Lava River Cave, there is one more place to visit outside of Newberry Caldera. Spanning almost 20 miles from the caldera to Lava Butte is known as the Northwest Rift Zone. This is a zone of fissures and cracks where magma reached the surface 7,000 years ago. One of those eruptions left behind very unusual formations in a lava flow. Rather than a single flow like Lava Butte, this area has many different lava flows. Lava Cast Forest is one of the more remote landmarks of Newberry. The road in is a bit rough and not always passable in the winter. Lava Cast Forest can be explored in winter, but a lot of the scenery is covered in snow. From Lava Cast Forest is a great view of some Cascade peaks: South Sister, Broken Top, Middle Sister, and North Sister. After the snow has melted, there is a lot to learn from Lava Cast Forest. To explore the forest, there is a mile-long loop trail with interpretive signs. One of the great things about Newberry is all of the easy and accessible trails. After a bit of walking, you find yourself on the edge of a huge lava field. Lava Cast Forest gets its name from these tree molds. When eruptions started, lava surrounded all the trees and was cooled by their moisture. This left a protective mold around the trees. Inside the molds, trees either burned from additional lava or rotted away over time. The end result were these tree molds that are shaped like a cast. Some textures are rough, some melted over, and some left these drips of lava. The horizontal casts are from when lava pushed over some of the trees. Lava lands from earlier did not have any lava cast tree molds. The difference between the two lava flows was the type of lava. Lava lands had a much bigger eruption, including lava, which destroys everything in its path. Lava cast forest started with Pahoehoe lava flow, which is a slower and cooler liquid lava. Years after the eruption settled, primitive plants began to take back the forest. Mosses and lichens chemically broke down the lava rock into soil. This eventually led to other plants being able to grow here. Just like the twisted trees from lava lands, these plants still have to adapt to less nutrients. Less nutrients cause the trees to be shorter than they usually are, and their age is shortened as well. Lava cast forest is right in the middle of the Northwest Rift Zone. When the ground surface was stretched and broken, magma began to rise and erupt. This series of eruptions formed many lava flows and cinder cones, such as Matt.'s Butte. Both humans and nature have slowly reduced the size of the lava casts. It is important that visitors do not leave an impact, so future generations can view them too. Fortunately, lava cast forest was included into Newberry Monument, which helps to protect the area. With unique tree molds and many lava flows, lava cast forest gives us a closer look at the Northwest Rift Zone, which includes most of Newberry's recent eruptions. After exploring the north end of the monument, it is time to look inside Newberry Caldera. The caldera wall is much lower on the west side. If not for this lower side, the two lakes would be much higher. There is only one point of drainage for the water in Newberry Caldera. Paulina Falls provides drainage to the Caldera Lakes at the west entrance. From the falls is Paulina Creek, which eventually feeds into the Deschutes River. A couple different viewing areas show the 80-foot double drop falls over volcanic cliffs. Paulina Falls is the first of our features named after Chief Paulina. Paulina was a Native American Paiute that fought for his people's freedom in this area. He was a master tactician, using guerrilla warfare tactics to fight and escape the U.S. Army many times. Part of his tribe's territory was the caldera, and they used it for its many natural resources. Paulina Falls was created from eruption and erosion. About 75,000 years ago, after many eruptions, Newberry volcano collapsed. The collapse created a caldera, where water gathered at the bottom, forming the two lakes. As the two lakes filled, they eventually found drainage in the lowest point of the west caldera wall. The powerful water flow continues to erode rock below it. As erosion occurs, boulders fall and gather at the bottom. This erosion is also slowly moving the falls back towards the lake. At some point, this erosion opened up the wall holding in the lake, causing a huge flood. We can learn more about this flood by traveling down Paulina Creek on the Peter Skeen Ogden Trail. Next to Paulina Creek is a dry waterfall. This indicates that there was much more water flowing here at one point. After the flood drained some of the lake, the creek settled to just one of these two waterfalls. Island Falls leads us down Paulina Creek to another flood clue. Next to Paulina Creek, huge gravel bars indicate that water level was once much higher. The last clue is up at Paulina Lake, which feeds the creek. Many wave-cut shorelines above the lake indicate that it used to be much higher. Thanks to these indicators, we know that Paulina Creek had a flood that drained some of Paulina Lake. Paulina Falls can also be visited in winter. The roads are closed, making the trail in much longer. Some visitors get very creative with their winter recreational activities here. The powerful water at Paulina Falls shows us that eruptions are not the only force of nature that affects the land at Newberry. After seeing the creek, it is time to explore one of the twin lakes. These lakes were formed after the collapse of Newberry volcano. One lake feeds into the other, and this one feeds into the creek. Another feature named after the famous Chief Paulina, Paulina Lake is one of two twin caldera lakes. As we learned from Paulina Falls, the lakes formed after the eruption and collapse of Newberry volcano. The low points in the caldera gathered water, raising until they found an outlet in Paulina Creek. Cars cannot access the caldera in winter. The only way in is by snowmobile or on foot. Snowshoe and ski trails are a good way to reach Paulina Lake. Paulina Lake Lodge is open for meals and lodging year-round. The caldera lakes freeze for a few months out of the year. While the lake is nice to look at in the winter, it can really be explored when things thaw out. Paulina Lake gets its water by being the low point in the caldera. The water sources are snowmelt, rain, a hot spring, and groundwater flows from the other twin lake. Before eruptions and collapse, this was the magma-filled inside of Newberry volcano. Sitting above Paulina Lake is the highest remaining point of Newberry volcano, Paulina Peak. The lake is used for all kinds of recreational activities, such as fishing, kayaking, paddleboarding, and hiking. The Paulina Lakeshore Loop circles the lake for about 7.5 miles. The trail comes across a few things, including a lava flow coming from the north end of the caldera. This lava flow is a little more unusual because it features obsidian rocks. Obsidian is a sharp and glassy rock created from the rapid cooling of lava. A similar flow nearby is called Big Obsidian Flow, which erupted within the last 2,000 years. Another feature found on the lake is a group of geothermally heated hot springs. These seasonal lakeside pools vary in temperature around 100 degrees. The water is heated by going deep underground. Deep underneath the caldera is magma that heats the underground water. As water gets heated, it becomes less dense. The lighter hot water rises to the surface and bubbles out at these pools. Because of this hot spot for geothermal activity, many drilling surveys have been done near Paulina. The designation of Newberry Monument was partly to protect the land from geothermal plants. Researchers at the University of Oregon looked to find exactly how much magma is under Newberry. They used seismic waves to measure the body of magma. As waves travel slower in hot liquids, distortion in waves indicates magma. The researchers found that 2 miles below the surface is somewhere around a cubic mile of magma. They used the results from their research to model the shape and size of the magma chamber. This information can also be used to predict the style and size of future eruptions. With geothermal activity and a giant magma chamber under Paulina Lake, we know that Newberry Caldera could become active again one day. Going further into the caldera is the youngest eruption, which is the home of a less common volcanic rock. This lava flow came from the inside of the South Caldera Wall. At only 1,300 years old, Big Obsidian Flow is the youngest lava flow in Oregon. In addition to being so recent, it is unique because its massive amount of obsidian. Obsidian is a less common form of volcanic rock created by the rapid cooling of lava. There is a short loop trail going through part of this obsidian flow. Caution is advised as the rocks can be very sharp. Obsidian is extra sharp because it is created quickly with minimal crystal growth. When it breaks, the edges are much smaller and more sharp than any other rock. Though named after the unique obsidian, the area is also made up of other volcanic rock. As other rocks form much slower than obsidian, they have much more time for crystal growth, which creates more visible grain in the rock. The glass-like obsidian takes focus in this area as it is a much more rare occurrence. Big Obsidian Flow erupted in 3 different phases. The main eruption point came from a dome at the southern caldera wall. The first part was an explosive phase that produced Newberry's pumice. This powerful eruption carried by wind brought ash all the way into the neighboring state of Idaho. The second part of the eruption was less explosive. This part created an ash flow between Paulina Lake and Big Obsidian Flow. The final stage of the eruption was magma that lost much of its gas before reaching the surface. Because it was towards the end of the volcanic cycle, there was less gas, causing the lava to cool rapidly and form into obsidian. Native Americans, such as Chief Paulina, have been using obsidian to make tools for a very long time. An excavation was done nearby to find a 10,000-year-old Native American shelter. This shelter was buried by ash from other recent eruptions. Gathering obsidian was one of the reasons that Chief Paulina used this area. The structure of this rock makes it great for forming sharp weapons and tools. Native Americans call this obsidian rock a shukwish. It is important to note that taking obsidian is illegal. We want everyone to be able to come and enjoy this natural wonder. There is a place near Newberry called Glass Butte where obsidian collection is completely legal. Another way to explore Big Obsidian Flow is by Lost Lake Trail. This trail goes parallel along the whole lava flow. Usually obsidian is a shiny dark black, but it isn't always that way. Obsidian can have other colors based on the minerals it was formed with. Big Obsidian Flow is one of the few different obsidian flows at Newberry. At just around 1 square mile, it is by far the largest one. Having erupted only 1,300 years ago, Big Obsidian Flow is the most recent eruption at Newberry. Another eruption at Newberry could happen again, but probably not in our lifetime. On the far east end of the caldera is the other twin lake. This twin is a little smaller, higher elevation, and a very popular fishing spot. East Lake is the other twin lake sitting at the back end of the caldera. Just like Paulina Lake, this is a result of the caldera-forming collapse, making a low point that collected water. Various volcanic minerals give East Lake a very clean floor and healthy waters. There is a wide variety of rock because of the many different lava flows that surround the lake. One flow is a white pumice flow that comes from the central pumice cone. The cone sits at the center of the caldera between the two lakes. This feature was formed by an explosive interaction between magma and water, similar to the hot springs from earlier, but in this case the magma was much closer to the surface, causing an explosive eruption. Next to the cone, the interlake flow came from the north caldera wall and split into both of the lakes. On the north end of the lake is the East Lake Fissure. This fissure marks the extension of the northwest rift zone into the caldera. A wide variety of wildlife enjoys this healthy caldera lake. Birds such as the western tanager have an abundance of insects to feed from. Various birds and other wildlife have migrated here after the lakes formed. Some animals have probably become spoiled from all the human waste. The fish here are abundant, but not originally natural to the area. East Lake is landlocked, so there is no way a fish could migrate here. In early 1900s, they began stocking the Twin Lakes with fish. Today, the caldera is a very healthy habitat for many types of fish. The lake is very popular to fish for kokanee, salmon, rainbow, and brown trout. At the south end of the lake, there is a strong sulfur smell. Just like Paulina Lake, there are thermal vents pushing out hot water. These thermal vents once had pipes bringing the hot water to pools at the old East Lake Health Resort. East Lake Health Resort burned down at one point, and a new one was built below the East Lake Obsidian Flow. East Lake is one of the few places to get on the Newberry Crater Rim Trail. This 20-mile scenic trail circles the entire rim of the caldera. Though it was created by the destructive forces of lava, East Lake is an incredibly healthy lake enjoyed by both humans and wildlife. The final point of interest is what remains of Newberry Volcano. At the south caldera wall is the highest point of Newberry Monument. At just under 8,000 feet, Paulina Peak is the highest remaining point of Newberry Volcano. The story of this volcano got interesting about 500,000 years ago when the volcano peaked in elevation. Most of the Cascade peaks you see are stratovolcanoes, which have steep slopes. Newberry is a shield volcano, which means it has a very gradual slope. When Newberry Volcano peaked, it was only 1,000 or so feet taller than it is today. Filled with magma and pressure, the volcano started releasing that pressure through eruptions like the ones that we learned about earlier. One final explosive eruption occurred 75,000 years ago. At that point, the volcano was so empty that it collapsed, forming Newberry Caldera. After Newberry Caldera was formed, smaller eruptions continued to occur in the area. Water, plants, and wildlife slowly found their way to the caldera. Today, Paulina Peak gets covered in snow that completely melts after summer. There is a windy gravel road up to the summit. Due to snow covering the road, it only remains open for a few months out of the year. There is also a 6-mile hiking loop to Paulina Peak. The trail provides quick changes in scenery as you gain elevation. There are a few different cliffside viewpoints of the caldera. Some cliffs around the inner caldera walls are called ring faults. These show where the caldera collapse happened. Horseback is another way to make it to the top of Paulina Peak. Newberry has a lot of horse-friendly trails. At the higher elevations is a rare tree, the whitebark pine. This endangered tree suffers mainly from two things. One being a non-native fungus called white pine blister rust. This came from Europe just like the bat white nose syndrome from Lava River Cave. The other threat is a mountain pine beetle which bores into the bark and kills the tree. Whitebark pine are worth protecting. They provide nutrition to wildlife through their seeds. Their broad crowns and wind-blown branches collect and shade snow. This slows the snowmelt, which causes a more steady supply of water. A mound of rocks marks the true summit of Paulina Peak and what remains of Newberry Volcano. From the summit, you can look down into the caldera that was once an active volcano. Because of the caldera collapse, Paulina Peak has much steeper cliffs than Newberry Volcano did. From the summit viewpoint, you can see many distant mountains on a clear day. As we saw from other parts of Newberry, the Three Sisters and Broken Top are almost always in view. Looking east, you can see Pine Mountain, which is known for its observatory. If the skies are clear, you can look really far to the north and see Mount Hood, Oregon's tallest volcano. From Paulina Peak and all of the other stops, we have learned much of the story of Newberry Volcano. Through many volcanic wonders, Newberry Caldera shows the effects of eruptions and how everything adapts to them. Newberry Volcano drastically changed the landscape of Central Oregon. So much natural evidence was left for humans to piece together the story of Newberry. Some of that evidence indicates that Newberry could erupt again one day. Until then, Newberry should remain protected so future generations can enjoy it as we do today. Newberry National Volcanic Monument is truly the home of volcanic wonders of Oregon.